Public opinion and action matters. And nearly every day, someone is researching, polling, or surveying the financial world to see how investors feel, retirees plan, consumers spend, and savers think.
I'm busting with news.
That fact-finding can help you figure out where you fit in.
You are exactly the guy I want to talk to.
Or don't fit in with the rest of the financial world.
Maybe I'm not the guy you should be talking to.
So whether it's the latest academic research, analysis of investors, or poll of consumers, you'll benefit from hearing from experts behind the studies.
You say expert. I say geek.
As MoneyLife looks at what the
survey said.
Help you, I can. Yeah.
Well, today it's not so much a survey as it is research data, a new white paper specifically that is out from the Spectrum Group, which shows that Social Security is a really huge portion of retirement income, even for affluent investors. It's that last part. I don't think you would have been surprised, or even I would have been surprised if you said, oh, well, you know, Social Security is a significant portion of retirement income, but it's a big component even for the affluent. Here to discuss it, George Walper, president of the Spectrum Group. Now, if you want more information, it's spectrum.com, but if you go to the Money Life Show recent and upcoming guest page, you will find George there, and you will find a link directly to the Social Security When and Why white paper. You can also follow Spectrum Group on Twitter. They're at Spectrum Group, and Spectrum is SPECTREM, Spectrum Group. And George is at GWalperJR. George Walper, welcome back to Money Life.
Thank you, Chuck. Nice to visit with you again.
Good to talk with you. Love the research that you do at Spectrum Group. This one, like I said, was interesting to me because it said that there's a big chunk of people with net worths of 6 to 7 figures that are relying on Social Security benefits for at least half of their retirement income. Those are the people that are supposed to be the three-legged stool and like maybe a third. So this suggests that a lot of people are messing it up. And if the rich folks are messing it up, then everybody else has got to be even worse, don't they?
Well, that is true. In addition to the high percentage of wealthy folks that rely on income, this is also a very emotional topic for folks, meaning Social Security. So when you think of baby boomers and World War II generations who are retired and taking Social Security, their entire working life, that's all they thought about was getting Social Security. So it's something that they factored into their plans, but it does seem a little disproportionate that they have to rely so much on the Social Security monthly income. But nonetheless, they indicate that they do. In some cases, 15 to 25% of their monthly income is relied upon from Social Security.
Is there any way to back away from that reliance? Because if you can't back away from that reliance, then you've got the problem that we sort of face in this country that, oh, by the way, you can never really reform Social Security because nobody's going to agree to it.
That's just not political, but it is also emotional. We actually asked some very interesting questions years ago when President Bush was going to reinvent, redesign, change Social Security, if you recall way back then. And these wealthy consumers in the country said, wait a second, my number one concern right now for retirement is will Social Security be there? And yet, as you suggest, they shouldn't be relying on Social Security. But the folks that are a little bit older, who are very wealthy, 70s and 80s, it's become a big factor for them. But folks in their 50s and 60s right now are facing some decisions that they must make going forward relative to when they decide to take Social Security, not just in terms of age, and of course age is being pushed out in terms of when you can actually take it, but what discount or what percentage less of their full payment are they willing to take? And quite often we find people make decisions that say, well, I'm going to take it at 62 because that's when I'm entitled, but that's a huge discount. So it's a tough, complex decision, and yet all of us grew up thinking this is easy. When I turn 62 or 65 and retire, I'll get Social Security. Something that should be simple has become kind of complicated.
Yeah, that's sort of the classic mistake. The ideal, almost always, unless you have a reason to believe that you're going to die within a couple of years, the ideal is always push off taking Social Security as long as you can. It gives you better benefits for life. Are they doing this because of bad planning, or are they doing this because I'm going to get mine while the getting is good?
Well, I think it's a little bit of the latter, and that's what I mean by this is an emotional topic. A number of folks who grew up, younger World War II or older baby boomers, they're thinking, wait a second, I better get it right now while it's there. But it's a huge difference between age 62 and age 70. But you can see some statistics that says, in retrospect, this is the old Monday morning quarterback, in retrospect, if someone only lived till they were in their late 70s, they were better off taking it when they were age 62. But how do you know, right?
Yeah.
You need to, you don't know the future, so you want to think about the current month from an income standpoint, and age 70 still seems to be the optimal time to take the maximum benefit.
Is there anything that changes as we see, the politics going through it right now in the presidential election, or is this something that only changes when it's forced upon people? When you look at the numbers that you came out with in this research, are you worried that, this doesn't change for people until it is forced on them to change by just there's no other alternatives and now we change the system?
The reality of it is the system has to change, but it's a very difficult political thing to talk about, to change. It's also a very difficult thing from a finance standpoint. How do you really change it? But the most important thing is for consumers to be very, very knowledgeable as they start to get into their late 50s, let's say, mid-50s, because, in fact, they've been investing. Everybody at that point has been in some type of 401k-related type plan, or those for educators are in the 403b. But the point is they have some type of retirement plan that they've been part of. The happiest Americans right now in retirement are those that are taking Social Security and had the benefit of a pension plan, a defined benefit plan, where they, in addition to Social Security, get a monthly check. But there's a lot of baby boomers in Generation X who are going to retire only with 401k plans. They really need to plan now and factor in how important income other than Social Security will be in retirement. Even if the government never changes Social Security and the math is the same way, it's still not going to be enough for most people to live on. So It is interesting that people depend on it so much.
Yeah, and like I said, when the numbers show that about a third of people with six figures in net worth are still using Social Security for half of their retirement income, that's a problem. Great stuff, George. Thanks so much for joining me on the show.
You're welcome, Chuck. Thank you.
George Walper is president of the Spectrum Group. If you want more information, it's spectrum.com. If you want to find the paper on Social Security, it's linked up at the Money Life Show recent and upcoming guest page. They're on Twitter at Spectrum Group. George is at GWalperJR. That is a great way to start the Monday, August 1st edition of Money Life. Up next, it's the big interview. Christina Hooper, U.S. investment strategist for Allianz Global Investors, will be here when Money Life returns right after this message.